Have you ever felt exhausted by the noise of the world? Those people telling you how you should be, what you should do, how you should live? Today, I want to talk to you about something we all experience but very few truly understand. Solitude. Not the solitude that hurts, but the one that sets you free. The one that allows you to listen to yourself, without masks and without expectations. Would you dare to explore this path with me? Imagine a normal day. You wake up, check your phone, go to work, talk to colleagues, come home, have dinner with family or friends, and suddenly you realize you haven't had a single moment for yourself. Sound familiar? Amid so much activity, solitude seems like a luxury, but in reality it is a necessity. As Schopenhauer said, only when you are alone are you truly free. It is in those moments of stillness that you can be yourself, without filters, without disguises. But we have been taught to fear solitude. Since childhood, we are told that being alone is sad, that it is something to avoid. However, what happens when you allow yourself to be alone? What do you discover when you step away from the noise and immerse yourself in your own silence? You remember the last time you did something alone? Maybe it was a walk in the park, an afternoon reading a book, or simply sitting and looking out the window. In those moments, something magical happens. You realize that you don't need anyone else to feel complete. As Schopenhauer said, to be everything to oneself, to desire nothing, to be able to say, everything I have, I carry with me. Isn't that a form of happiness? But it's not easy. Being alone means facing yourself, your fears, your insecurities, and that can hurt. It hurts because it forces us to look at what we sometimes prefer to ignore. But you know what? It is precisely in that pain that we find our strength. Solitude is not an escape, it is a mirror that shows us who we truly are. Throughout history, solitude has been a path to greatness. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, facing his demons. Buddha meditated for years in the wilderness, reaching enlightenment. Nietzsche, in his solitary retreat, wrote some of the most profound works of modern philosophy. These figures understood that solitude is not isolation, but an opportunity to confront what limits us and emerge stronger. Even in ancient cultures, solitude was a rite of passage. Young people were taken to the desert where they had to face their fears, hunt, survive. Only those who passed this test were considered men. Today, however, we run from solitude. We fill it with screens, with noise, with distractions. But what are we avoiding? What could we discover if we allowed ourselves to be alone? Solitude is not always comfortable. Sometimes tuning into oneself means reliving past traumas, facing fears, anxieties, and painful emotions. But it is precisely in this confrontation that we find healing. As Albert Camus said, when a man has learned to stay alone with his suffering, then he has little left to learn. In Japan, the Dr. Shoma Morita developed a therapy based on solitude where patients confront their suffering without distractions. This approach reminds us that solitude is not an enemy, but an ally, a safe space to process, release, and heal. In our society, solitude is seen as something to be avoided. When we are alone, we seek to distract ourselves with social media, TV shows, music. But what are we avoiding? What voices are we silencing? Nietzsche said that the mediocre man is isolated from himself, absorbed by a collectivity that suffocates his individuality. Solitude brings us back to ourselves. It allows us to listen to that inner voice we often drown out with the noise of the world. And while not everyone is meant to be a hermit, we all need moments of silence to reconnect with our true selves. Nietzsche, one of the most influential philosophers in history, spent much of his life in solitude. For him, solitude was not a punishment but a liberation. In his work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the protagonist, Zarathustra, spends years in the mountains, enjoying his solitude. But, at some point, he feels the need to share his wisdom with the world. However, when he tries, he realizes that most people are not ready to understand him. This makes him feel even more isolated. Nietzsche believed that solitude was essential for creative thought. Only in solitude could he free himself from traditions and social expectations. But he also understood that solitude was not a permanent state. It was a temporary refuge, a space to recharge before returning to the world. Solitude is not a destination, it is a path to freedom, authenticity, and fulfillment. Do not fear solitude, embrace it. Allow yourself to be with yourself without distractions, without masks. Because, as Thomas Merton said, all men need enough silence and solitude in their lives to allow the deep inner voice of their true self to be heard. So next time you find yourself alone, don't run. Stay, listen, discover. Because in solitude you are not empty. You are complete.